I wanted to record something just in the vein of the video that I recorded yesterday, where I was looking at that article from EV.com talking about how 50%, something like 50% of men, according to a survey, don't approach women at all because they fear being called creepy. And you can go back and watch that video to see, what all is discussed in that article, and what my take on the article is. I don't want to rehash too much of that, but I think relevant to this entire question, relevant to this whole smorgasbord or constellation of issues. Interesting to say smorgasbord and constellation, to use those two terms interchangeably, but I just did. So that's my virtuoso. I'm just such a virtuoso with words. That's what you've come to know and love about me. So what I was remembering was actually when I spoke to Katherine Dee, or Default Friend, as is her moniker. This was a few months ago. Now, since that time, we clashed on some things, or on one thing in particular, which I recorded a video about, and I very much doubt that she would want to talk to me again. But I do have to give credit where it's due. She brought up for me in this interview something that was interesting, and that it shone a light on relations between the sexes that in a way that I hadn't really thought about before. And what she said was that she remembered a time when it was women who were average looking, the plain Jane type of women, who would get left out. Sort of a reverse of what we have today, where if you're an average man, an average looking man, you're just, as I've said, furniture to most women, including average women. This is a result of many things. It's been heavily critiqued and discussed, but of course social media plays a huge role in why this has happened. Whereas if you're a middle-aged or a middle of the road woman, as far as looks goes, you're still going to get tons of attention. And she had said that it wasn't always like that. And I said, "What do you mean it wasn't always like that?" And she said, "Remember back in high school," and this is me paraphrasing. And she said, "High school boys have the highest standards for women imaginable." And I thought this was really a profound moment for me, because it made me recollect those high school days, which of course I've spent some time recollecting in the past. I've even written a couple of books recollecting, which in effect are recollecting, the unhappy high school experience that many of us had. And I realized, that's absolutely, she's absolutely right. When I was a high school boy, 16, 17 years of age, something like that, the plain Janes didn't capture my interest at all. It was all the 8s and the 9s, the homecoming court, the cheerleaders, what have you. They were the ones who occupied my attention, and the attention of others like me. And I was not a popular kid. I was a geek or a nerd or whatever label you want to put on it. But it is true that maybe back then, if I had asked one of the plain Janes, one of the ones who was, not a girl who was, terribly ugly, but someone, not to put down the uglies either. I'm not meaning this in any derogatory way towards anyone, but just saying, if you do value looks to a degree, which we all do to a degree, you're willing to make a compromise. Why not ask the 4 or 5, the plain Jane who you maybe would rank as a 4 or a 5 if you had to rank them as on a scale of 1 to 10, as opposed to the 8s and 9s on the cheerleading squad. But the 4s and 5s who were in who were in the beta club with you, or something like that. I don't know, on the yearbook staff or the newspaper staff. Why was that not an option at all for me? And that was interesting. That was an interesting thing to point out. Now there are a couple of differences. She and I talked in that interview also about how it changed with social media, and also I think it also just changes when you get older. And I gave the example of if you're in a bar, if you're an average looking man in a bar, you're probably not going to get a lot of attention, if any attention. But if you're an average looking woman in a bar, you're going to get attention from men. It might not be the kind of men that you want to get attention from, but you will still get attention, as opposed to if you're a man, you're probably just going to get ignored. But in a way, the shoe was on the other foot back in high school, because I would hazard a guess that if I had said to one of those 4s or 5s, I hate doing the ranking thing and talking about people as if they're just reducible to some number, but I'm just doing it here to make a point. So if I had asked out some plain Jane to the homecoming dance or something, she probably would have said yes, or likely would have said yes, but I wouldn't have, in asking her, I wouldn't have felt awkward at all. I don't think, because I wouldn't have felt there was much to lose, unfortunately, because like she was saying, like she pointed out to me at that time, young men, high school boys, and even going into college, you tend to just be really riveted by the beauties, and those who aren't beauties, or who are only marginally good looking, or just maybe around where you are on the looks scale, you don't really notice them. But the difference was that I wouldn't have had any shot, me or any other guys like me. None of us would have had any shot at the pretty popular girls. They wouldn't have wanted to do anything with us or go anywhere with us. Whereas now, you're mid-level, let's say, female, the top level, high value. I love how they say they're called high. They use the term high value instead of high status. High status is the term that I'm sticking with. Those are basically the same. Those basically mean the same thing. Calling it high value is sort of trying to make it sound less superficial. But I think it means the same. It's referring to the same kind of men. So those kind of men, if you are, just a fair to middling, plain Jane young woman today, they will give you the time of day. They will go out with you. They will sleep with you. But they won't commit to you. They won't want to be with you in any committed capacity. Just like they won't want to be with any more attractive women that they also sleep with in any committed capacity. So, if I could have Katherine Dee, default friend, back for an interview, and I wish I could, but I just think I kind of burned that bridge, or that bridge got burned. But it was a necessity. I guess it had to happen. It's unfortunate, but it was what kind of had to happen. But I would enjoy having that conversation. Like, who is worse off? The teenage boy who doesn't notice the plain Jane girls, but who gets no attention from the attractive popular girls, and mostly it doesn't. In my case, doesn't even try, because he knows that he would be wasting his time, and that it would end with his humiliation. And those who would try, who would try to make a play for that level of woman, that level of girl. Not to say that these girls are better than anybody, or that anybody is better than anybody else. I want to make that clear too. It's just, socially speaking, they are more popular. So who's got it worse off? The guy, the high school guy who ignores the plain Janes, but still is alone, and doesn't could have a girlfriend if he noticed the plain Janes, or could have at least a date to prom or something, but instead just goes without. Is he worse off, or is the same plain Jane years later in a social media world, who's getting tons of attention from men who are above her in the social, again, not above her in any kind of important way, but who are above her as far as looks or status or what have you? Is she worse off because these kind of guys are willing to use her just for sex, but then are going to discard her after that? Which of the, and in that case, and in the case of the plain Jane, she's of course, she's also analogous to the example that I gave of myself as the high school boy, the average looking high school boy, because to the plain Jane, who's getting all this attention from the really high value men, she's not going to her, men who are around her same range of looks and so forth, they don't register at all. Just like the plain Jane girls didn't register with me and others like me when we were high school age and slightly older, late adolescence. Who has it worse? Is it worse to be just ignored, or is it worse to get, to use that vulgar term, pumped and dumped, and at best to be a part of some guy's harem? Who ultimately is in who ultimately feels worse? Who ultimately, because men and women are different. Okay, getting no high school boy would have minded getting pumped and dumped by by the prom queen. That would have been a boost to his ego. But for a fair to middling woman to have that happen to her, maybe it's a somewhat of a boost to the ego, but it still leaves her feeling basically used, and you know, the fact that he won't commit, the fact that he's not really uh, uh, that he doesn't really see her as marriage material, that has to sting in a way that must be similar to how it must sting, you know, the teenage boy when he gets rejected by pretty popular girls. So what are your thoughts on that? Let me know. Thanks for watching.